it actually helps when you don't force the mom back to work immediately. Schools should know that more than any other institution. If things don't go well in the first 6 weeks of a child's life, it will impact that child throughout his academic career.
A bill in the Alabama State Senate would have given state employees 8 weeks of paid leave in the event of the birth of a child, adoption, or the stillbirth of a baby. And it passed, actually, 26-2, which is really a landslide when you're talking about a bill that improves the lives of Alabamians. Having it pass 26-2 in the state Senate is remarkable. But Senate Pro Tem Greg Reed killed it. He is not going to transmit this package this bill to the House, and so it will not have the opportunity to be passed by the House and signed by the governor this legislative session. Vivian Figures, the sponsor of the bill, a Democrat from, where is Figures from? Montgomery?
Mobile.
Oof, I was way off. Vivian Figures from Mobile, the sponsor of the bill, was very unhappy. Adam, what were some of the things that she was saying?
Yeah, I mean, she just brought out, frankly, that it's inappropriate for the Senate leader to prevent a vote in the House on this, that there's no need to do it. There's no need to wait another year. And she pointed out that, none of the people who are making this decision are actually going to be pregnant. None of them are going to give birth. In most cases, none of them are even, going to be having children anytime soon. I mean, most of the folks she's talking to, her colleagues, are grandparents or great-grandparents or, hell, great-great-grandparents, looking at some of them. So, she brought out some of the hypocrisy around it, which I really appreciated. She said that you have no idea what it's like, not only the physical things we have to go through, but the mental and emotional things we have to go through. The least you can all do is give us a little time, 8 weeks to deal with that. I just want to say I'll be coming back with a vengeance next year, and I won't be by myself. So really disappointing to see the way that this bill was kind of watered down over time. Men were not included for this parental leave. It also brought it down from 12 weeks, which had originally been the consideration. So, disappointed to see that even this compromise version is not going to get a full, fair, hearing in the House and an opportunity to pass this year, because it seems like there's not a ton of opposition necessarily. Right. At least there wasn't on the floor of the Senate. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's maybe there's a desire to slow this down and an attempt
without having to say that you voted against it. Right.
Because, it's a bad look to say you're pro-family, you're a family values legislator.
Pro-life.
You're pro-life, but you're against maternity leave for teachers, right, that are in state employees. I think it could be that. It's a way to kill the bill without directly voting against it. So it's really disappointing. But I do think that there was a lot of momentum built around this issue this year, more than I've seen throughout my career. I became a teacher back in 2012, had a daughter in 2015. My wife was also a teacher, and was a teacher at the time of giving birth. And so we experienced firsthand, like, the lack of parental leave and how devastating it can be. I mean, I think my daughter was like in kindergarten before my wife ever actually was positive in her sick leave balance. It took her years to build back up her sick leave, because, not only do you miss a lot of time with giving birth, but babies get sick a lot. Babies have lots of appointments. Perhaps some legislators don't remember that or know that, but it takes a lot of sick leave to be a parent of a young child. And so I think there's a lot of momentum. I want to see the momentum continue. I think it really requires public educators and state employees working in coalition, working together and amplifying this issue, to get it across the finish line for everybody, and don't leave anybody out.
Well, now that testimony does not jive with the assertions of at least one conservative capitalist boss, employer, publisher, newspaper owner, person who derives his living from owning rather than producing and laboring, Scott Buttram. He says that state employees, especially teachers, I'm not totally sure what that means, offer some of the best PTO policies of any jobs in Alabama. Not sure why the Alabama Senate Republicans would even seriously consider this. So, and he says that when our daughter, his wife was a teacher, when our daughter was born during the school year in 2006, she had a ton of PTO. His wife being having a ton of PTO, far more than needed for paternity or for maternity leave. This is a sham, he said. The PTO policy is an outstanding benefit. An outstanding benefit. In just 5 years of working, an Alabama teacher could accumulate 17 weeks of paid time off, even if they had been out sick for an entire week every single year for 5 years. They would still have 12 weeks of paid time off. Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. So, I mean, there you go. That's if you're only sick for 5 days in a year, or your kids are only sick for 5 days in a year, right? That's a pretty big asterisk that he just kind of waves away. But yeah, so I mean, Scott is not impressed by by the argument that teachers and women deserve maternity leave in the state of Alabama. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I don't understand exactly how he's laying this all out here. I mean, you get one sick leave day per month. You get provided by the state of Alabama, and now this is for teachers. You get 2 personal leave days per year. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly where he's getting that. You could accumulate 12 weeks of paid time off so easily. It's also unrealistic, like you said, but also we as educators know, perhaps better than most folks, how important it is that parents be home with their children, especially in those early weeks. Like, it's really formative. It has a really big impact on the child's development and on the family's development. Like, that's pretty overwhelmingly clear through research. Which, by the way, teachers actually have to read some of this stuff to get certified. We have to study a little bit of this child development and brain development, and turns out it's really good to not force them. Yeah, it actually helps when you don't force the mom back to work immediately, and when everyone has time to acclimate, and there's time for bonding and it's really, really important. So, like, schools should know that more than any other institution, because schools are impacted directly by this development, right? If things don't go well in the first 6 weeks of a child's life, it will impact that child for, throughout its academic career. The schools bear the brunt of that. So, like, if anything, schools should lead by example. They should be employers of example by providing paid maternity leave and paternity leave, for that matter, just paid parental leave, period. But yeah, it's asinine. I mean, you've got a profession that is 70-80% female. I don't have the statistics on how many of those teachers will give birth, but I mean, looking at the numbers, it's obvious the average teacher will give birth more than the average firefighter or the average cop or the average mechanic, right? Just realistically. And so this is a really important benefit that you can provide that will keep folks in the profession.
Right.
Because a lot of folks, especially if they're early in their career, they don't have any time built up. And, they end up not coming back to the profession often. Often that happens. But if you've got a generous paid parental leave policy, that's even more reason to stay in. So I think it really helps with recruiting and retaining quality folks. It's the right thing to do morally and for families. And it's not really going to be much of a cost. I just don't anticipate very much cost at all. And, evidently we have the money to spend it on school choice.
Right.
We've got the money to subsidize private and religious education of wealthy families. So, I think we can afford to let teachers stay home when they give birth for a few weeks. Seems reasonable.
Yeah, and just to expand on that just very briefly, 1 sick day a month, it's 12 sick days, and 2 personal days a year. So that's a minimum of 14 days off every year, a maximum of 17 if your local school district has the option of giving you 3 more personal days. The idea that these numbers coming from, you could accumulate, and that he's really leaning on this ability to accumulate benefits that you have earned, that you have worked for, as if that's kind of ridiculous and like super generous, that you would be given the things that you earned and worked for, that you were promised. The idea that anybody, frankly, any employer does not allow vacation time to roll over if you decide that you do not want to take leave as often as somebody else. You should be able to do with that whatever you want at any employer. The idea that it accumulates, or you can convert personal days to sick days at the end of the year, is not impressive. That's like bare minimum. Additionally, 14 days in a year of getting sick, or of even, God forbid, you want to take a short trip and you take 1 or 2 personal days, that's not a lot. And so it would be difficult, yes, absolutely, to accumulate 17 weeks of paid time off after being in the classroom for 5 years. That's something that would be, not necessarily impossible, but yes, difficult. And instead of saying that teachers should have to do that, should have to hope and push through, being sick. If they have kids, they're in, the germy places that schools are, and coming to class anyway. The idea that they should have to rely on not using any of the benefits that they earn year over year to hope that they get enough so that they can use that when they give birth is absurd, and the idea that, and then, his going balls to the wall against this, right? It's one thing like, oh, I don't think it's fiscally responsible. I would vote no or whatever. But the idea going out and saying they have some of the most generous and liberal PTO policies of any jobs in Alabama, far more than needed for maternity. I mean, what does that even mean? I worked in a restaurant and we had a woman work up until 12 hours before she gave birth, and she was back in the restaurant 2 days. So what does that even mean? Far more than is needed for paternity. You're talking about needing for paternity. You could be talking about 36 hours. That's a meaningless statement. And they should be given maternity and paternity leave, obviously, because it's a good fiscal decision for the schools, for retention, and for, attacking the labor shortage. And it's good morally. It's a good fiscal decision. And yeah, it's gross to be, lambasting this effort in the way that he is.
Well, yeah, that guy's a creep. But on another story, though, in that vein, really, like I said, I want to see the State Employees Association. I want to see the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, the AEA, Alabama Education Association. They should all be up in arms, and they should all be demanding that this happen, because it's wild that in 2024 it's not already the standard.
Yeah.
It should be the standard. It is in the developed world and in other parts of this country, but, not here in Alabama. It's the Alabama way.
Right.
That's the Alabama discount, right?
Yeah.
But,
right.
So yeah, I want to see folks up in arms on that, and I think it's a winning issue. It's an issue that resonates with people. It's good for families. It's good for the teachers. It's good for kids. So let's do it.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.